Hi guys, my name's Cagney. I am the Director of Education at the Ohio Beef Council. So a little bit about today, we will be touring Craig Corry's cow-calf operation and just a little update. So we will be having an option of a live question and answer, but if you have other questions that come on through, feel free to throw them in the chat and we can get them answered as soon as possible. And another quick update is that this is the production virtual farm tour. So if you're interested more in the meat science side of things, we will be having that tour on October 21st. So if you're interested in that, feel free to sign up. And then, so let's say hi to our classrooms. We have Miss Haven's Ag class from West Liberty Salem High School. All right, and we have Miss Atkins, students from Mount Vernon.
Hello.
Hi, guys. All right, we're so excited to have you all. And now I'll let Craig talk a little bit about himself and his cow-calf operation and his herd.
All right, hi guys. Happy Friday. It's a wonderful 62 degrees here in Greene County near Xenia at the Corry Farm. Thanks for coming, and teachers, thanks for allowing your students and taking some time out of your day to hopefully we can make this a learning meaningful experience for everyone. Make sure you get questions in and submit them, and we'll certainly allow time. I can't see you on screen, but I will be able to hear and communicate with you, so be sure, feel free to ask questions. We'll give you a little background quick about the farm and the cattle operation, and discuss a couple things, and then we'll open it up and do the best we can with your questions. This farm was settled by my great-great-great-grandfather in 1830. That makes me the 6th generation, my kids the 7th generation of the Corry family to operate this land. Our operation is about 500 acres, so we raise corn and soybeans for grain crops. We sell most of those. Some of the corn we keep for feed for the cattle operation. We also raise winter wheat. Yesterday we just finished planting our winter wheat, so it'll be needing some rain maybe this weekend. There's a prediction we'll get some. It'll sprout and grow through the winter, and then we'll harvest it next summer. We also raise some hay for the cattle because they obviously they need a feed source through the winter. So that's a little bit about the crops we raise. Now, as far as why we raise cattle in this farm, as the camera pans around and as we look around, you can see that we're standing on a hillside, and some of the land near us is covered with grass because that's the best crop to grow on that soil. You guys that are in FFA classes, if you do soil judging, you learn about the different land classes and what row crops are best suited for. Because of our slope and some of our soil conditions, we have a few acres of land that is best suited just to leave it in grass to protect the topsoil and make our operation more sustainable and environmentally friendly. So we only raise grass on those acres, and then the cows harvest the grass. The sun shines, the rain falls, the grass grows, and we use the cow herd to harvest the grass from the pasture acres. These cows that you're looking at here are range in age from 2 years of age. They are 2.5. Some of them had their first calf this spring. Most beef cows are bred so that they have their first calf when they're about 2 years of age. The oldest one in here is 14 or 15 years old. We had one this year that we did keep here for 16 years. And that is, at that age, that starts to get kind of the maximum age for most cattle because you'll see when they stand under the shade trees, they're not only chewing the hay that they're eating now, but they chew their cud continually, and their teeth completely, they continually get wear and tear on them, and their skeletons get a little weaker as age goes, even as with us humans as well. So they reach a point in their life when old age eventually catches up with them. We have about 35 cows. This is the mother cow herd that lives here year round. So they all calve in the spring, February, March, April, and late in the summer, then the calves are able to be weaned, and they can, at that point, they can eat solid feed and grow probably faster on feed that we provide to them that they eat rather than their mother's milk. So those calves, then some of them, the better heifers, we retain for replacements in the herd to replace the cows that age out, and some of them are sold. We've raised cattle that kids have exhibited at county fairs, state and national shows. Just depends on their quality. So does anybody have any questions related to any of that, or think of anything real quick that Cagney will see what's been submitted or what somebody has? Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Ms. Hayes, do you guys have any questions?
Yeah. Do these cows show emotions in any way?
Oh, do they show emotions? Cows don't show emotions. I would describe it that some of these cows have they have behavioral patterns. They are individuals. So this one here, I'm able to get close enough to it. It doesn't seem to be bothered by the fact that I'm rubbing its back or scratching it, but just like a lot of us, like a nice rub between their shoulders. Maybe it's a little relaxing, but there are some of them they don't want me close to them. They are shy. They would walk away. They have no way to communicate other than if they want something that we're not providing to them, and usually it's in the way of feed, they will certainly bawl, and they'll let you know that they're, if you want to call that being unhappy, if there is a need that one of them has that they see it's not being met, they do let us know. But they have a pecking order even among themselves. The older ones tend to kind of be the bosses. If she sees a mouthful of feed, that this one is lower on the hierarchy of the order in the herd, the boss cow will usually say, "Get out of my way, you're eating my feed." That's what it's usually related to. That's a good question. Anything else?
Any other questions? Come up with some questions.
I could say related to that last one, as far as the cows, a strong instinct that they have, of course, is their mothering ability. And particularly when their calf is newborn, they're very, very protective, as all animals in the wild are. A domesticated cow, pigs, lambs, animals in any setting, they're very protective of their young. So at that point, a cow could be dangerous if a human was to interact or interfere, get too close to a newborn calf. But eventually, newborn, they see you coming, and you can't get close to them because their natural instinct is just like a deer. Their natural instinct is to move away and get away a little bit. That's a good question. Well, okay, while you're thinking of some others, a couple other things we can mention here. What is it, what's it like in a life of a cow here? Well, as we had mentioned before, most of them now, take a good close look at the ones that are just kind of chilling over there underneath the shade trees. It was really hot here last week. So what does a cow do to keep cool? How tough are they? How hot can it really be before it bothers the cows? Well, they're really no different than us. If the sun shines and it gets hot, they look for a shade tree to stand under. They swish their tail because they hate flies, and they don't like to be bothered with flies. Flies get in their face, and they can carry an infection into their eyes, which as a producer, then we have to check the cow herd daily or very frequently just to see if any of them, if they're starting to get infection in their eyes. Pink eye would be a disease that would be common. So we take steps that we can to make sure that that doesn't happen. Try to limit the number of flies. They're digesting their food even as they stand there, as they're chewing their cud. You guys in an ag class probably know we had the elementary kids this morning, so we asked them a question: how many stomachs does a cow have, and what type of food does a cow naturally eat? Well, most of you guys probably know that a cow has, for all practical purposes, you can say that a cow has 4 stomachs. And the first digestive tract that they have, their esophagus can swallow, and it can also bring foodstuffs back up. So when a cow eats the hay and eats grass, like you saw them doing a little bit ago, it goes into their first digestive tract. It's called the rumen, and it's just a big vat of the hay that they've eaten, any grain or all their feedstuffs are in there. So later, after the cow eats, then it goes and finds a place to chill out, sit down, or just kind of stand around, and they start chewing their cud, which means their esophagus can pinch off a little wad of some of that stuff that's floating around inside of them, and they actually bring it back up to their mouth, and then their teeth grind and grind and chew for hours to break down the plant material that they eat. That's why you and I cannot live on grass and hay and plant products like that. If you've had junior high science, think about this, guys, that you learn the difference between an animal cell wall and a plant cell wall, or an animal cell and a plant cell. A plant cell has that cellulose, lignin. It's called different things, but a plant cell has a cell wall that's thick, and it's tough to break it down to get to the good nutrients inside the cell. So a cow has the ability to do that. And part of that is just chewing on it continuously. And that's just a natural thing that they do. And these here, that's the middle of the day. They graze in the morning. And when it's hot and they find a place to shade, they get a cool drink out of the spring, out of the water. And they're going to spend hours digesting the food that they ate at other times. So that's what these guys are quite happy to do that. Last week when it was really hot, it may have been very difficult and uncomfortable for us, but cattle live in desert climates in the Southwest, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, in areas, they may have to walk over 20 acres of an acre is about the size of a football field. They have to cover a lot of ground in a day just to get enough, a mouthful of grass here and there to meet their nutritional needs, but they're able to do it. And in the wintertime, here on our farm, they have a barn that they always have shelter, that if the weather is really nasty and cold, if it's a snow day when you're off school, the cows, they may go inside for a while if the wind really blows or it's a cold, wet rain. They don't like that. But we never close them in the barn because they know it's when it's okay for them to go outside. They are able to make a decision when it's good enough for them to go out and get something to eat, or just stand still and soak up some sun even on a very cold day. So we let them have the freedom to move around whatever they would like. As long as they have a dry place to get in when it's really cold or nasty, get out of a cold rain, get out of the mud a little bit, they're very happy, and they thrive and do well. So does anybody else have any questions?
Salem, do you guys have any questions?
We do.
Okay, fire away.
They're all afraid to ask. Okay.
Okay.
Marissa wants to know how many acres of grassland is recommended per cow?
That's a good question. That depends a lot on geography. Different farmers have different management systems. We are probably, in our operation, we're probably what some people would call a minimum for the number of dedicated pasture acres per cow. Maybe, let's say if we said 1 acre of grass, per a cow calf pair. That's a good rule of thumb. Well, if that's good, unless we have a dry August and September, then last couple months we've had to supply a lot of extra feed stuffs for the cows. In Ohio and in our neighborhood, once we harvest corn stalks or once we harvest corn in the fall, then if that field is able to be fenced, then we can turn the cows out and they'll get a lot of feed value after the combine goes through. No machine ever gets 100% of the corn, and there's always some green left in the corn stalks. And a cow with 4 stomachs can do quite well on a crop residue like that, and really do well up until the weather gets really bad in the winter. We also plant some other crops after we harvest our winter wheat, a couple of kinds of grasses that if it's planted in the middle of July, by the time we get to early August and through this time period, it is just now green and growing and providing good feed for the cows. There are parts of Ohio where they have 5 to 10 acres of permanent grass per cow, maybe a lot more slope and a lot more tough pasture conditions. So that management system would be a little bit different. But they have to be fed. You either have to harvest it with a tractor or mechanically, or provide a pasture for them to eat. They do have to be fed. Good question.
Depending on the species of the cow, can the beef taste different when you slaughter it?
You mean the breed of the cow?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought, yeah, you said the species of the cow. You mean the breed? Okay. In ag class, you may learn a little bit about different breeds of cows. So what have you guys learned? What have you learned about different breeds of cows, or what do some of you know about that? Is there any breed that has a reputation for maybe being a higher quality beef?
Okay, they're asking this question of us, guys. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you heard of like certified Angus beef or something like that?
Okay, Cooper, answer the question. Angus.
Yep. Most of you probably have heard some of those things. Angus, the black Angus cattle, and these cows, most of them are black hided and colored black, but very few of them are 100% Angus. Most of these cows are crossbred between 2 or 3 breeds, but if they're black, they probably do have some Angus in them more than likely. And Angus cattle as a breed are noted for having maybe a higher quality carcass, but I'd have to say under today's management and the way a lot of cattle are crossbred, it's not confined just to one breed. There are producers of other breeds of cattle that they would have a very strong argument to make that their cattle are very well prepared as from a retail standpoint. That's a good question too.
All right, Craig, we can see that cow over there hanging around the mineral
Oh yeah.
over there and explain what maybe she's doing.
Yep. All right. Some of you probably already know, but as I said, cows hate flies. I hate flies. You guys probably do too. So a lot of cattle producers have a machine or a piece of equipment like this that's out in the pasture. It's spring loaded and they love to rub on it. And what it has in the center is kind of a cotton wick, and it's connected up to this tank at the top. And just when you guys, it's the same thing as when you guys go out in the woods or you're outside at night and it starts to get dusk and the mosquitoes and the bugs and everything start flying around you and you get aggravated about that. You could put on insect repellent to help keep them away. And that's kind of what this thing does as well. So to attract the cows to it, it has these curtains and a big tub in there. So cattle like salt. They do like to lick a salt block now and then, and they like minerals. So their tongue is very rough, and every one of them will come up here and eat a few ounces of salt or a little bit of mineral every day. So as they get around this thing, the tank has a wick in it and a fluid. So as they push through here with their face, it wipes a little bit of insect repellent on their face to help keep the flies away from their eyes. And then as far as the rest of their body goes, their hair is tough, it's leather, it's hide, and they rub on this thing that hangs off to the side so that it gets a little bit of that product on them. And then when they stand as a group underneath the trees, they rub against each other and they butt into each other, and they knock each other around some just because they're big and awkward. And it just naturally then, once it kind of starts working, it gets repellent spread through all of them, and it really helps keep down. We can never get rid of all the flies, but we can significantly reduce a lot of them, and that makes for happier cows. So now you know what some of these things look like. They'll have them in, farmers will have them in barns, but that's what it does. And the calves, they like it too. The mineral it's low enough that when the young calves are with the cows, they can get in there with it too. Now, these cows don't have any, we don't have any of the baby calves. None of the young calves are with these cows today because they were all born long enough, far enough back in the spring that they've been weaned. But when they are with the cows, some of you may see a machine like this out in a cow pasture, and it's called a creep feeder. And it is made with a bin, or it has a holding area that holds a high energy feed, probably has some corn or oats or a protein mix or something like that, which is good to help the young calves grow. So it supplements what the feed that they need and from their mother's milk, but it has a cage around it and openings only big enough so that the calves can go through, but the mothers can only about maybe stick their head in and look. And the mothers would like to come in and eat that feed, but they really don't need it. And if they did, they would push the calves away and the calves would never get any. So these things are designed so that the calves can come through and eat, and the mothers can't. And it's got a cover on it, keeps the feed nice and dry, and that's really good product for the calves. So am I missing any questions anybody else has about any of that?
Does anyone have any questions right now?
Yes, we have one. Cam has a question.
Hi, how big is your guys' feedlot?
How big is what? Our feedlot?
Yeah.
Acreage.
Oh, acreage. It's I'd have to think of the actual measurements. As far as our confined feeding area, I run it at about maybe half capacity what it was built. We feed out about 50 head a year, so not a lot compared with some of the big operations out west that they cover hundreds and hundreds of acres. But we have a nice, comfortable area for them that's dry and got a lot of roof space over it. So in the worst of the winter weather, put a lot of bedding in for them. They got a nice place, nice warm place to lay, and all the feed they need. I didn't mention what do cows do, or how do they keep warm in the winter. We talked about what they do when it was really hot last week, but besides keeping them warm and dry in the winter, they will eat more feed themselves. And they've already started to hair up a little bit because how does an animal know that winter is coming? Well, the days are starting to get shorter. We just had the fall equinox about 2 weeks ago. So the length of day starts telling these animals winter's on the horizon, winter's coming, it's going to get colder. So it's time to grow some hair and prepare for a winter hair coat. So besides doing that, their body naturally goes into protection and preparation, I should say, for the winter cycle. And if it gets really cold, we give the cows some corn that has a lot of calories, has a lot of energy, If we think maybe that the hay that they're eating isn't quite by itself meeting their nutritional needs, then we'll give them some extra during a really cold spell of weather. We'll give them some extra nutrients. Another thing that a lot of producers have, if you see the big black tubs that we don't have any out yet, but we use a lot of what they call protein tubs in the wintertime. It has a mixture of salt, molasses, and protein with it. So they like salt. So salt is an attractant, but just like you and I, we can only eat so much salt, and then when we get too much, we quit. We've had enough. Molasses is sweet. It's like syrup. It's like candy to a cow. So they like the taste of molasses, and when they've had enough salt, they'll quit. So animal scientists are able to figure out how to make a protein tub that a cow needs so many ounces of protein, so many mega units of vitamins and minerals a day, and mix it all together, put it together in a tub that looks like hard rock candy. And when the cow licks it, they lick it until they get enough salt that they decide, I've had enough, I'm walking away, and go chew my cud for a while. And it's amazing how those things work. It's a very good feed for the cows. They pretty much are able to balance what they need and take care of themselves. That's a good question.
All right, Dan, maybe while Craig goes over, do you want to show the barn slide?
Yeah, we'll offer some feed. We have some calves that the calves that have been weaned off of some of there are 5 in here that have been weaned off the cows, and they got a little bit of feed this morning, so we'll see if they'll come out.
All right, does anyone have any other questions? West Liberty?
Hey, go ahead, Hayden. Hayden wants to know if the cows are fed silage.
No, I do not have we do not have a silo here. A lot of beef operations do. We just don't. We do not have a silo. Now, one thing that we would have as a feed that is similar to that is baleage. We do wet wrap. If you're familiar with that, we do what's called wet wrapping some hay that is product is a tall grass. It's actually called Sudan grass. It's kind of related to corn. It's tall, has a lot of sugar content to it, and we harvest that in the late summer and then wrap it up inside of a round bale, which is the long white tubes or the long plastic tubes out in the field. And so that would smell like silage. It would act like silage, but as far as corn silage, yeah, we don't feed any.
Right, Miss Atkins, you guys have any questions?
At what age is a cow supposed to be slaughtered? Is there a specific one?
Oh, okay. Say it again. How?
At what age is a cow to be slaughtered?
Oh, okay. I got you. Yeah, these guys that you're looking at, they were born in I'll say March and April. When they were born, they were about 80 pounds, maybe 90. Now they weigh about 400, probably on average. So they've gained weight pretty rapidly. It will not be until next summer that they will be big enough to be market weight. And that'll be, let's say, 1,200, maybe up to 1,400 pounds. So that's 16 months, maybe 18 months. It sort of depends. Now we're going to feed them. That's grain that we've raised, that we've processed, and we'll show you some of the close-ups of the feed stuffs here that we make our own feed mix here. Some of you that show cattle at the fair, of course, you can buy a complete feed. Some of you may mix your own. and just a producer or a grower's preference. But for cattle to make market weight, they do have to in that length of time, they do need a high quality feed. One of the things that you may hear about in the market these days is grass-fed beef. Grass-fed beef, it's only different from these cattle, but they just don't eat grain. They're fed grass or maybe a pasture mix where they graze. The meat, some people say the meat tastes different. It does take longer for a calf to get to market weight, that heavy a size, when they don't eat grain. But that's just kind of, again, that's a consumer preference, that's a producer preference, different marketing opportunities that the cattle market, the beef market has to offer today. I'll just add that the way we evaluate when an animal is ready to go, it's not, you don't put them on a scale every day and say, okay, you weigh 1,300 pounds, so you're now you're now market ready. They have to, when an animal is ready to go to market, you watch the steer show, watch the cattle shows at your county fair. The judge will comment about where animals start to deposit fat on their body as they're growing. They don't have much fat on them, but as they near market ready, up underneath their chin starts to fill in, back around their tail head. There are parts of the body which are indicators that yes, this animal is nearing market readiness. His meat has the proper fat content to make choice grade or that type of thing, the highest value in the grocery stores, in the food business.
Cody, you want to ask your question? So Cody has a question.
Okay.
Cody. He said, how many pounds of feed do you think you go through per year?
Oh, wow. All right. Let's kind of let's do the quick math on that. At this weight, I'll give you a rule of thumb. Once an animal is growing, if it's able to eat about 2% of its body weight per day. So, and of course that's going to go up because the bigger they get, that 2% is going to grow. So if these guys are 400 right now, 2% of that's about 8 pounds per head per day. So times 5 head, that's 40 pounds as a group. So if you had 100 head on feed, that would be a lot of feed, a lot of corn, a lot of grain that a guy would have to mix and keep delivering to the animals. Now, these aren't really on full feed. We're just kind of limiting them. We're just allowing them kind of to be in the growing phase, the growing stage. But if you're taking an animal to the county fair, and once that calf gets to 1,000 pounds, some of you may know that thing's going to eat 20 to 25 pounds a day of feed, maybe some hay on top of that. So a 50-pound bag of feed could disappear in 2 days. So yeah, that's just a quick math. If you were to multiply that out by 100 head or 1,000 head or something like that, that's a lot of product. That's a lot of grain that gets marketed through the nationally. A lot of the corn that we produce in the United States. Think of all the cattle and all the hogs, all the chickens, turkeys, all the poultry, all the those feed animals, sheep. A lot of the crops that we produce go into livestock.
All right, Craig, now do you like to head on over to the table and show some individual corn and soybeans in the feed?
Yep, okay. Yep, you guys, I think most of you guys are from the agricultural areas. I'm sure that most of you have probably seen just corn, which is a lot of farmers in our neighborhood are harvesting now. We do harvest some of it, and we harvest some corn on the cob, or what's called ear corn. We harvest some that way and grind it, cob and all, husk and all, and feed to the cattle. But don't have enough of that. By the time later on in the winter, we have to go to using shelled corn like this, and it can be ground a little bit and turned into that's the high energy part of the feed. So the quick lesson on grains is, of course, corn has many uses aside from being used. A lot of corn gets used in human consumption. Tostitos, Doritos, that's all corn. And corn flour is if you drink Mountain Dew or Pepsi, that's corn syrup. So a lot of the corn we raise is used for consumption, livestock, and us. Also, if you're in an area that is near an ethanol plant that is taking corn, they get a lot of the starch out of this kernel and turn that into ethanol, which then is mixed with gasoline. Usually 10 or 15% of the gasoline that we use in our cars has alcohol, ethanol, made from corn. When they remove that stuff from the corn, then there is a product left over called distiller's grains or dried distiller's grains. There's a gluten meal that is a byproduct of that process, which a lot of farmers can use to feed to their animals, their cattle, hogs, etc. So that's the energy part of the feed. Next jar has soybeans. So soybeans are a little bit lower in energy, but they're very high in protein. So protein is when this bean can be squeezed real tight, like in a vise. They can get a drop of oil out of every one of these beans. Soy oil is used for cooking. It can be used to make ink, which a lot of newspapers and magazines that you guys read on a daily basis have ink that's made from soybean oil. Then it can be biodiesel and grease and oil and things that we use on the farm for our equipment. The leftover product from that becomes a meal that's still ground up as a fine meal, which is very high in protein. So we can mix that with corn, the soybean meal, or they can take the soybean meal by itself, add a little bit of molasses and a little bit of soybean oil back to it. And then they squeeze it through a grid, a screen that makes these pellets, and that's a high protein. I think these are 44% protein pellets, which a little bit of corn with a little bit of protein meal, and that's a very simple ration to make hogs and cattle, chickens, turkeys grow really fast. And then in the cattle pastures, this stuff looks like ground sand, but it's calcium, phosphorus, minerals with vitamins. And again, that cow's tongue is really rough, so we just pour that out into the tub, and when they feel that they need some salt and mineral, they go lick on it for a while, and then they walk away. And of course, that is a 50-pound salt block that you saw a picture of that. The cows need salt as a nutrient, just like water. And you and I like a certain amount of salt too. Too much is bad for us, but certain amounts we need. And that's no different than a cow. It helps regulate their water intake. The more water they drink, the more salt they'll probably go lick off the block. That's very simple feed stuffs there. Of course, just a bale of hay, that's about 50 pounds. And a cow, that's probably enough hay in the winter time. That bale of hay would feed a cow, most of ours, maybe for 2 days. Cow will easily eat a half a bale of hay a day. A lot of farmers put them in round bales and even round big square bales. They're different sizes, but that's just sort of it's all hay. That's one of the that's a producer preference.
All right, Craig, it looks like we have about 5 minutes left. So, Miss Atkins, do you guys have any questions?
question? No, I guess not.
West Liberty Salem, did you guys have any questions?
Yeah, just a couple things. One of the, because they wrote questions down before they left. One of the questions the students had was in your protein tub. Is it soybean meal that is the protein in that? Like you
Yeah.
mentioned the salt and the molasses, and then you said protein. They wondered if that was.
Yes. I think usually it's soybean meal, and it's really neat how they make them. They just kind of make it. It looks like it just comes out like hard candy, but vitamin A, vitamin D, a lot of the essential nutrients are all blended together. But it's the ratio that somebody has actually calculated. If they need this many ounces of protein and this many units of vitamin A, they can put all that together. The molasses is the attractant, and salt is the limiter. Now, those tubs they're not inexpensive. They're not cheap, but from a nutritional standpoint, I've always thought they're just very unique, and that's as a great invention that really simplifies cattle production.
All right, Craig. So we talked a lot about, or maybe they've heard a lot about the word sustainability. And
Yes.
would you mind describing what sustainability means to you in your operation?
Sure. Sustainability, it plays a big role in our operation just because, as I alluded to in the beginning, there's a certain number of acres on our farm that they would basically be unproductive. We can't use them for corn and soybean production. The soil would either erode, or the roots of the crops would not develop properly because of the structure of the soil. So it just makes sense for us to plant that type of acre to a grass crop and manage it accordingly, and let the cow herd take care of the harvesting there. It gives us income off of those acres that we would have to otherwise not be able to use. But it's a cycle. The manure from our operation is an important source of nutrients for our crops. We recycle all of that. The feed that we feed the animals is harvested here and cycled through them. So it's just an interesting cycle that if we have drought like we've had the last couple months, it changes maybe things a little bit, but it's not something that we can't manage. We just have to plan accordingly and have a stockpile of feed to make up for any shortfalls we might temporarily have. We'll have plenty of feed for this winter. The cows, they're not going to get hungry. They're going to be fine. They're not going to hurt at all.
All right. Does anyone else have any other questions?
No.
No, ma'am.
All right. So Craig, why did you want to be a farmer? What made you decide to be a farmer?
All right. Just the family history. I'm fortunate to have opportunity. A lot of people say they love to be a farmer, but they don't have any land. So I guess I was fortunate from the standpoint that my family had a land base in which to operate. But I also had another job for 30 years besides being a farmer. So my kids today, all three of them have full-time jobs. So none of us, we don't have a big enough operation that it sustains a family full-time. But it's a good lifestyle. It's a good opportunity. And it's not something that makes us rich, but it is a business that if we manage things properly, it does provide income for us. So it's good to work in harmony with nature and the environment, and it just has been very good opportunity for us. We're glad to take advantage of it.
Perfect. Craig, thank you so much for sharing your passion and a little bit about your operation with us today. We've greatly appreciated it. And
Sure.
thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you guys have any other questions or would like any other resources for your classroom, please feel free to reach out to me and I can help out in any way. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Craig.
You're welcome. See ya.
Bye.